This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joire.
Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joire, and today is Thursday, January 16th, 2019, and my guest is Max Weinbach of XDA Developers. Hi, Max, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. Lots of rumors this week, and it's kind of coincidental I have you on. I wasn't planning on doing it this way, but you were awesome this week with the leaks and the news and everything around the Galaxy S20, which I think is pretty clearly what it's going to be called, right?
Oh, yeah. It's definitely the S20. S20, S20 Plus, and S20 Ultra.
Well, there you go, folks. So do you want to just give us a quick overview of what the leaks entail, what your kind of analysis and takeaways on this? And I would love to chime in as well. So by all means, just start. Give us a kind of rundown of what to expect, for those people. I mean, we've covered the S20 so far and S11 before that in the show, but I kind of want you to maybe give us a quick rundown summary.
So, basically, it is the flagship phone of flagships. It's got the best specs, and in my leaks, I've leaked specs, pictures, information on the cameras, just about everything. So it's going to have the best specs, 12 gigs of RAM across all three, well, technically 5 models, with the maxed out version of the S20 Ultra getting a crazy 16 gigs of RAM.
Right.
Which is just insane.
Do we know for sure it's going to be called the Ultra then? Do you have a good hunch on that?
The official name, I've seen some leaked promo docs. Those actually haven't been posted, but I've seen some of those. It's called the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra 5G.
Got it. And so there's a Plus as well and a regular. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So there's going to be a regular 5G, a Plus and a Plus 5G, then the Ultra 5G.
And the Ultra is only 5G, of course.
Yeah,
right.
They're only doing 5G for that one. And I have a hunch that'll be Snapdragon only.
I see. The top one.
Yeah, I think that'll be Snapdragon only.
Because it's, 5G only. And so the 4G versions presumably will have Exynos then.
Yeah, so in the US, we're only getting the Snapdragon versions. And in other countries where regulatory issues, holdups with 5G are happening, or there's just no 5G network, they will be launching the LTE with the Exynos processor.
Got it. That's pretty exciting. So in terms of naming, S20 for sure, we got regular, Plus, and Ultra. Exynos on the 4G, 5G versions for all three, except no 4G for the top. We got that so far. What else do we know in terms of, you said 16 gigs of RAM. Is this only on the top end model then?
Yeah, that'll likely only be for the highest end model of the Ultra. And currently I'm hearing 2 different rumors. One says it'll be 512 gigs of UFS 3 storage for 16 gigs of RAM, or it might be 1 terabyte of UFS 3 storage for 16 gigs of RAM.
Well, there has been that one chip that they made that was a terabyte chip, wasn't there?
I think they said late 2019 they were going into production.
Yeah, so that would totally fit perfectly, yeah. What else do we know in terms of, do you know anything on displays?
Yes, so all 3 displays are going to have a maximum refresh rate of 120 hertz at a resolution of 3200 by 1440.
So they're 2K displays at 120 hertz. Do you think they're going to use variable frequency on this because of battery life, or do you think it's going to be pegged?
So it's not going to be locked into 120 hertz. When you enable the 120 hertz mode, only the system animations and certain apps you can select will be 120 hertz.
Got it.
So it'll be very similar to the Pixel.
But is it gonna drop down to just 90 hertz instead of 60? Is what I'm saying?
No,
you know what I'm saying?
60.
No, 60. Oh.
It'll either be 60 or 120.
See, that's a bummer. I got my Pixel 4 XL locked at 90 hertz, and yeah, I know I'm getting a bit of a battery life hit, but man, after being on a OnePlus for so long, it's just there's nothing. I don't want to go back to 60 hertz ever. I don't care if I'm just navigating the UI. How do you feel?
I agree. I am a gamer, so I use high refresh rate monitors. So my main monitor that I use for everything is 240 hertz.
Wow.
So
I was at CS and saw some 360 hertz displays there.
Oh, those looked insane. I'm
They're
really
insane.
excited for
I mean,
those.
sorry, attention. I didn't mean to interrupt your train of thought.
No, that's fine. But 90 hertz is nice. It's not a huge difference from 60, but it's nice. 120 is a big boost up. So I can pretty easily switch between 90 and 60, but I don't know if I can go from 120 back down to 60.
I can't do 60 anymore. Not on my main phone. It's not happening. I hope they have a setting where you can peg it down to 90. I mean, 120 is nice. I'll take it especially for gaming. But honestly, if they could let me select 90 and then a specific applications that I can like force to 120 or something, that's what I really want, even if it costs me a little on battery life. I mean, it's not like Samsung flagship phones in the last year have suffered on battery life, right? I think that they've got that down now. So I'm not worried if I throw away 5% of my battery life on running at 90 hertz all the time. That's my opinion, though.
Yeah, I'm somewhat concerned about battery life on the S20s,
Are you?
though.
What do we know of the capacity? What is it looking like?
So, S20, 4,000 milliamp hours. S20 Plus, 4,500. S20 Ultra, 5,000.
Well, that should be enough. I mean, remember, the Snapdragon 865 is going to be further more efficient than the 855.
Wait, wasn't the 865, weren't they giving either like a 25% performance boost or 25% efficiency boost?
I think it was
Wasn't it up to
both.
the OEM to choose?
No, I think,
remember.
I mean, even if you chose and you did the middle, you'd get 10% on both sides. That's pretty good.
That's true.
I mean, so here's my thing. Do we know the display sizes and whether they're waterfall displays or they're flat?
So they're 2.5D glass, basically flat.
Okay. Oh, so no more of that waterfall stuff that Samsung is so well known for? That's weird.
No, it's really a shame. I really like the curved displays on the Note 10 and S10s.
Huh. I'm not a big fan myself, but I have to say that I'm surprised that's such a Samsung brand thing.
Yeah.
That they would drop that. So all three of them. And what are the screen sizes as far as you know?
6.2, 6.7, 6.9.
So the 6.2 is going to be is that small? That's bigger than the S10e, right?
Yeah, S10e I believe is 5.8.
Yeah, so that's too bad that they're not making a small one.
So
because
if you're going by pure width, the width of the S20 is equal to the S10, S20 Plus is equal to the S10 Plus, and Note 10 is equal to the S20 Ultra. They're just much taller.
Oh, interesting. And so let's talk cameras. You know, I'm a big imaging person. That's my thing. You're a gamer. I'm all about taking photos and videos and things. What do we know on the camera systems?
So they will all have a triple camera with the two higher up, the Plus and the Ultra, also getting time of flight.
Okay, so 4.
So yeah, basically 4. But I've been in the group of not considering time of flight cameras an extra camera.
No, I don't either.
It's kind of useless.
Yeah, it's useless. But I mean, you know, it depends. Actually, okay, the way I look at it personally is if they use a lens and a camera to do it, it qualifies as a camera to me. If they're using a depth sensor, like an infrared projector sort of deal, you know, that technically has a camera that's infrared as well, it's you know, there's a bit of blurriness there. Samsung in the 5G models of their phones, the S10 and the Note 10 did use a time of flight camera. I think it was the S10 5G.
S10 5G, yeah.
Yeah, and that doesn't count to me as a camera. It's literally a depth sensor, not a camera. And so that's how I distinguish them. So if I see an actual real lens back there, dumb, 2 megapixel or 5 megapixel, RGB camera that's used with some smart image processing to calculate depth and gives you some parallax, I call that a camera, even though it's kind of stupid and not really used for anything but portraits. But if it's like a complicated, time of flight type deal, then I call it a sensor. It's like splitting the difference, I guess.
Yeah,
What about the front? Do we know anything about the front camera? And is there going to be a hole punch, or are we looking at a different setup now?
We're looking at a hole punch. It's the 10 megapixel sensor. So I actually heard something earlier today. The S20 Ultra is apparently going to use a 40 megapixel sensor, and they're going to bin that down to 10. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure about the credibility of that one, but I have confirmed on the S20 and S20 Plus, it will actually be the same sensor as the S10 and Note 10. So 10
That's
megapixels.
Fine.
And it will support 4K 60 FPS.
Okay, good. That's you definitely have to catch up with the Jonesies here with Apple, right? But It's interesting to me because I think that I buy that 40 megapixel zoomer for the front for the Ultra. Since a lot of Chinese phones have 32 megapixel front cameras that been down to 8. So
even Samsung does.
Yeah, does on what? The A series?
The lights, the new light.
Ah, the lights. Oh, right, the lights. I keep forgetting about those stupid, completely crazy spec phone, like crazy in terms of like they don't make sense at all, those specs. Headphone jack on the S10, no headphone jack on the Note 10, no headphone jack on the S10, and all that stuff. We covered that in the last 2 shows at CS. I was scratching my head about those phones so hard. They really seem like compliance phones to me. I mean, you're pretty connected to your sources at Samsung. It feels to me like, oh, look, it's December 31st. We should announce a phone before the end of the year that's called S10 Lite and Note 10 Lite so that we meet our quotas of whatever number of parts we need to sell for whatever reason or something. It's just weird to me.
That's basically what it's going to be.
Right.
And I feel like that's partly... I feel like that whole idea is also why, like, the new Galaxy Fold is a Snapdragon 855 instead of an 865.
Exactly. Well, let's talk about that folding phone in a minute, but I want to continue on talking about those cameras. What do we know about the cameras on the back of those 3 phones in terms of... because there's been a lot of discussion, and with Samsung making that 64 megapixel sensor, then there's been talk of a 1.8 micron, like 12 megapixel sensor. What's your intelligence telling you?
So we got both, actually. The zoom lens is a 64 megapixel sensor with 3 times like optical zoom, and you'll be able to zoom a total of 30 times.
And that's optically stabilized. Please tell me it's optically stabilized.
I believe so.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the main sensor is going to be that 1.8 micron pixel size 12 megapixel sensor. That's actually the Sony IMX 555.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I've got all the specific sensor names somewhere. Wow. They're written down somewhere. I just haven't.
What about the ultra wide? What are we looking at there?
That is a 12 megapixel sensor.
Regular,
I'm not sure the specs of that, but it is going to be same 123 degree wideness at 12 megapixels instead of 16 like the S10 and Note 10 has.
Well, that's good. I mean, honestly, I'd rather have larger pixels on that than too much res. A good compromise is obviously what Huawei's doing on the Mate 30 Pro, right? Which is like using a very similar sensor to the main sensor, but I think that gets really expensive really fast.
It's also not that wide.
Yeah, and I feel like one of the areas that's always been kind of like a letdown on all of our phones with triple cameras lately. And I know we always demand more because we're like that, right? It never ends progress. But the thing that's been vexing me is that we always get, worse apertures, right? Like larger f-stop numbers on the telephotos, obviously, because optics are optics. But then we get a crappier sensor in terms of low light performance. So I'm glad to see the 64 megapixel sensor on the zoom lens because the bidding works. It's real. Like, it makes a difference. And also it's interesting because in good light this would allow you to do some crazy hybrid zoom because you have 64 megapixels to start with plus a 3 times optical lens on there. And then I'm a bit bummed to see it just a 12 megapixel on the ultra wide because in low light again with those f-stops it's gonna be hurting a bit unless they put 1.4 micron pixels on that. I don't know if
I'll have to look into the sensor. Which sensors for the ultra wide?
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
I have seen a couple of image samples from my source, and it does look like they're actually improving their color science a lot as well. It reminds me something from a Pixel.
They really need to. I mean, I want a CN Android phone, and I hope Samsung can pull it off, that matches the iPhone in terms of consistent color science between the 3 lenses. Like the iPhone 11 and 11 Pro series are just mind-bogglingly good at, so you switch lenses and you don't notice. If you're recording video, I did an interview at CS where, because as a talking head, it was getting a little boring. And of course I panned a little bit, physically, but then I zoomed in and out between the ultra wide and the regular. And it's uncanny watching the result. It's so perfect. Like there's no difference in color science. It looks exactly the same. And that's what we want. That's the level of... I mean, Huawei is really the worst at that, in my opinion. They've gotten better with software updates. But like, oh my God, like the difference in color science is like, I just started using a Mate 30 Pro, so I won't judge it just too much yet. But the P30 Pro, which is, I'm familiar with, it's like the back of my hand.
They're
in terms of
basically the
imaging.
camera.
Like, it's crazy the difference in white balance by default between the three lenses.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I know a lot of it has to do with that RYYB sensor and stuff, but
Yeah. I've had the Mate 30 Pro since October, and I can tell you it is not a huge upgrade over the P30 Pro.
But that ultra wide with 40 megapixels, pretty sweet.
It's just not that. It's definitely nice to have, but it just isn't wide enough. For me to be
you're right. It's
useful.
not wide enough. So this is pretty awesome. What else? No headphone jack on any of these, right?
No, it's gone.
Well, that's not surprising.
Yeah.
But actually, a lot of people are going to be butthurt by that, I think.
Oh, definitely, 100%. I unfortunately I look at the Android subreddit way too much. It is a terrible subreddit, but a lot of people in the comments were saying no headphone jack, no buy, and I'm like,
yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, exactly. You're gonna buy it. There's no way you're not buying it. You're just lying. You're just whining. I'll read it. Also, what else do we know? Anything that stands out? Wireless charging, of course. Do we know anything on charging speeds on these phones?
25 watt minimum, and the Ultra will support 45 watts.
And this is 25 watt wireless or 25 watt
25 watt wired. It's Samsung's, I think they did USB power delivery 3.0 with EPS.
PD. Good.
And it's actually really fast, even at 25 watts.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I've noticed that the Note 10 was pretty decent at charging for a change. I don't remember the S10. I didn't really get to use the S10 that long because
S10 was 15 watt adaptive fast charging.
Yeah, that's probably why it wasn't that great. What about wireless? Do we know anything about their wireless charging?
I'm not sure. They did just release fast wireless charging 2.0 with the Note 10.
Right.
And that had basically no difference between before.
15
so it's
still,
probably
right?
gonna it's probably 15, which honestly that's fine.
I mean, I'm just asking because as you know, Huawei is just 27 and Xiaomi does 30 now, and they're all duking it out in the wireless charging space. I think it's good that they're duking it out. Competition is healthy. I'm personally not attached to wireless charging 100%. I love it. I have it. If I have it, I use it. It's nice. Sometimes I miss it when I don't have it, but I'm not going to cry over not having it. And I'm certainly not going to cry over not having it at high speed, right? 10 watt, I'm happy, But wired charging is where I really want some oomph. And to me, anything around 25 to 45 is sweet, right? So
yeah, and luckily we're getting that.
Yeah, we're getting that more and more. And I think that I'm really excited to see that everybody's pretty much doing that now. And I'm more excited that Samsung's doing it using PD, not proprietary stuff like Huawei and OnePlus, right?
Yeah.
Or Oppo.
Except
and by the way,
no one makes adapters for that power that power delivery standard.
It's like a jungle. It's like I got a gift from Huawei for the holidays. They're really nice. They send me a little card saying, "Hey, thanks for our relationship." And I love the Huawei folks. I have a really long time good relationship with them, and I love their products. But they sent me a proprietary, their proprietary fast charging adapter for the car, which is cool because every now and then I can now fast charge. I just have to find this adapter, and that's the problem, right? It's like I basically carry four adapters in my bag at all times, and 2 of them are PD, like up to 45 watt. I think I have universal PD chargers, and then 2 of them are the Huawei charger and the OnePlus one, because I always have a Huawei Honor device somewhere around and a OnePlus device somewhere around, and I want to fast charge it. I mean, it's a pain that I have to carry those 2. I'd rather have, instead of those 2, I'd rather carry a third PD charger. But, I do get a little bit of extra speed on using their proprietary chargers. And also, OnePlus charger charges Oppo phones, right? They're compatible. So, Oppo it's kind of interesting. I didn't know that. I mean, I know they're the same parent company. Like, they don't like to hear it that
it's a
the
BBK
thing,
it's
right? The BBK umbrella. But it's interesting because I have not been able to fast charge a Vivo phone with their fast charge system using the OnePlus and Oppo chargers. But Oppo and OnePlus seem pretty much equivalent in terms of charging speeds if you use the fastest charger you can. So that's interesting. And Huawei On, of course, it's exactly the same charger. We know that.
Their phones are basically the same.
I love how they like to pretend that they're two different companies, because I'm just like, are you nuts? Like, seriously, we love you, but like, come on, stop pretending. Just admit you have a second brand. It's meant to you for youth and whatever your marketing decides it is. And I'm 100% on board to support that in my messaging when I write stories. But don't give me that BS that you're two separate companies. Stop it already. Like,
it's crazy. It's also, I've noticed, just from my personal experience with it, Huawei phones are usually great quality, but I've noticed with Honor phones, they usually are a little bit cheaper.
Yeah.
Just all around. And that does make sense. They are actually, in price, they're also cheaper phones.
I mean, it's not like they're much worse, right? They're usually a little thicker, a little heavier, maybe a little, I don't think the build in quality and finish and is generally worse, but I feel like they're a little, definitely cutting some corners, and that's fine because the prices reflect that. And I think that's actually very good that they're making it so much more affordable.
I'm a huge fan. It's kind of like if Huawei, so I would compare Huawei and Honor to Samsung. Honor would be like the A series for Samsung, while Huawei had like the S and Notes.
Yeah, basically, totally. So back to the Samsung for a second. What else do we know about this S20 series? I think you've given us pretty much everything. Processor, RAM.
No, we missed the S20 Ultra cameras.
Oh, I thought we talked about those. Those are separate.
No, those are separate. Those are different.
Oh, please do tell. I'm rubbing my hands right now.
108 megapixel main sensor.
Oh boy.
60. So it's a 48 megapixel optical zoom with the periscope with up to 100 times zoom.
Whoa. All right.
So
I wonder if it's using the main sensor as well for that.
It's going to be hybrid between the 48 megapixel and 108.
Uh-huh.
And so they'll be able to take 48 megapixel shots out of the zoom and then crop in. So it'll be, you'll have a lot more pixels to work with, which is why they can go.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's interesting. Yeah. And what about the ultra wide? Still the same thing?
12 megapixels. And that also has time of flight.
Of course. Interesting. So what we're looking at is their new 108 megapixel sensor, basically, right? That's
it's actually a different one than the Xiaomi Mi Note 10.
Huh. Well, remember, the Xiaomi Mi Note 10 sensor was custom made for Xiaomi with Samsung.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, the Microsoft Surface Pro X has a SQ1 or whatever they call it processor that Microsoft had custom made for them by Qualcomm, but it's basically a Qualcomm Snapdragon 8CX with, I think, more cache and maybe a slightly higher clock speed on the GPU or something. I mean, we don't know the details. I just thought I read, these are the rumors I think I read somewhere, spewing out from my mouth onto the microphone. Please do not quote me on those numbers, but I think it's the same deal, and I totally get that. I think we're going to see more and more of these kind of custom partnerships. I mean, there's a big custom partnership that very few people talk about, is how the 11 Pro displays are made by Samsung, right?
Yeah.
For Apple. So that's obviously not public, or, Apple doesn't talk about it, but everybody knows, and that's the way it goes.
If it's a good looking display, it's Samsung.
I don't care. Exactly. Those displays are great. Do we know anything about the software? Are they going to mess that up?
It's actually One UI 2.1, and it's basically the same as the Note 10 and S10 on Android.
Shouldn't be too offensive then. Change. Okay, good.
I actually really like One UI.
It's not bad. I just still feel like it's a little too Samsung-y,
I agree, but that has become less of a downside.
Oh, lately. It's definitely nothing I can complain about now. And like in the past, I would just be like, Samsung UI from hell. But what about no Bixby button, I hope?
Nope. It's going to be like the Note 10, except shifted to the other side. So
this is kind of crazy to me that I thought they were going to dig in on this Bixby thing. They are seeming to kind of relax that a bit. There's a bit of a detente there, yeah?
The Bixby, so power button, holding on the power button by default.
Nobody does that, Max. Nobody cares. You know that, right? Like, so the fact that they removed the physical button, though, is a big step for Samsung. Congratulations, Samsung, for being reasonable.
Yeah.
Is what I'm going to say.
I would be fine if they kept it and just allowed it to be either Google Assistant or Bixby.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, I think we've got a pretty good sense of what to expect there. Wow. Thanks so much for, first of all, for your awesome connections and for sharing that with the rest of us and scooping everyone. I think it's pretty exciting. And one thing before we go, ultrasonic displays, fingerprint sensor on all three still?
It's the same sensor as the S10 and Note 10.
It's not the bigger one that Qualcomm just announced at the developer at the tech summit in Maui, right? Because that one's
unfortunately it isn't
huge. Oh well, that's next year, folks. Massive. Or the Note 10. Oh, sorry, the Note 20?
I'm thinking it's the Note 20.
Note 20.
But no one else will be able to use that sensor because last I heard, Samsung had an exclusivity deal with Qualcomm on that ultrasonic technology.
That is so strange. Why? Like, honestly, I mean, I don't care. It seems to work okay. They had a few stumbles this year with that, though, huh? Or last year, I should say.
Yeah, that was a fast. I didn't find that to be a huge deal. It was fixed in like a week.
Yeah. It wasn't a big deal. It's just interesting that it happened. I found that a bit weird because Qualcomm is usually on top of this stuff. I would have expected that on a Vivo phone, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Next Galaxy rumors, if you want to tell us what you know about this. Okay, first of all, the naming. There is a clamshell phone from Samsung, a folding phone that's going to be very similar to the Moto Razr that we just saw in December. And it's going to be potentially called the Galaxy Bloom or the Z Flip. What is Max saying about that?
Z Flip.
Okay.
Z Flip.
So Bloom is an internal code name, you think?
Yeah, so Bloom I have confirmed through multiple software sources, hardware sources, just me actually looking through those, and actual sources at Samsung. The code name for that device is Bloom. The code name for the S20 is actually Hubble.
Interesting.
But the Z Flip is called Bloom, so whenever they mention it internally, they call it the Galaxy Bloom, because that's just an easy way to call it that.
Right. It blooms open like a lovely flower in the summertime.
Exactly.
See? There you go. That was your little Shakespearean experience of the day. Terrible. I didn't even try to make a British accent there. I don't think that came across right at all. I apologize in advance to all my listeners for being a dork, okay? So tell me about the Z Flip. What do they mean by Z? Because Z implies two folding spots.
I honestly have no idea what they mean. This would be
the L Flip or the S well,
I don't know.
V Flip, yeah, thank you. The Z Flip naming does not make the flip part make sense because you flip it open, you flip it close, but the Z part I don't get.
I was talking to Narav a couple days ago, and we essentially, when we were discussing the foldables, we just ended up calling them the Flip and the Fold. So I wish Samsung would have just called it the Galaxy Flip and the Galaxy Fold.
Yeah. I think that would make more sense. So what do we know about these phones? You have all of the rumors all the time on this as well, pretty much. So give us the details, please.
So we will have a front camera, when opened, 10 megapixel, same as the S10, Note 10, S20s.
In a notch or in a hole?
Hole in the folding display, which is interesting to me.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Samsung, they can make all the displays in the world, so whatever.
Yeah. And then on the cameras on the rear, I was actually just told today it is.
Are they the rear or the front? Like, you know how the Razr?
It's kind of both. It depends on how you have it open.
Hold it. Okay, got it.
Yeah, when it's closed, it's the front. When it's open, it's the rear.
Got it. Okay, understood. So it's like the Razr. It's like the Razr because there's a little display in the front, right? And then the cameras are below or above that display. Yeah.
Yeah. So Samsung has a small display, but cameras first. It's 212 megapixels. It's the same. It's likely an ultra wide and main sensor setup. Basically, taking those two sensors from the S20 and moving them to the Z Flip.
Cool. What about processor? Okay, let's not talk about the hardware inside. Let's talk about the display because obviously it's a folding screen. Is it bigger or smaller than the Razr? Do we know anything about the size of it?
I believe it's 6.7 inches.
And the Razr is 6.2, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so that roughly gives us a feel for what it looks like. And then it's so presumably this folds flat for change, right? Kind of like
I
what
believe
Razer
it does.
was able to achieve. Moto really did a good job of that change. I don't know if you ever played with the Razer, but
I have not had a chance.
I was at their press briefing in LA, and wow, like the mechanics of this folding display, just like if you're a bit of a nerd and engineer, they're gonna make you really excited. Like, and so I'm wondering how Samsung's gonna pull it off, because on the Fold, it really feels like a kludge, like something got whipped together in a lab at the last minute, even though they know they spent 10 years doing it or whatever they claim, but it feels really janky. Whereas the Razer just feels like such a refined hinge system,
Yeah. So it will be, the hinge on the Z Flip is a more refined version of the Galaxy Fold's hinge. So this one will actually be able
flat, right?
It does. I believe it does. I haven't heard specifics, but I was told it should fold flat. It's also going to be able to stop at 90 degrees, so you'll be able to fold it at 90 degrees to have it just open, and you'll be able to stand it up. So let's say you want to record a selfie video or do a video call, you could just put it flat, you could put it down on a table, and we'll be able to stand at 90 degrees, and everything will crop up to like the top part of the display you can see when it's folded.
It's a display. It's a kickstand. It's a folder. It's a flip. Sorry, I'm just marketing in my head here.
It is
it
so
whips,
much.
It slices. It dices.
Oh yeah, it's really fun. Oh, it's also ultra thin glass.
Oh, so it's glass. It's not plastic.
Kind of. It is
both. It's coated in glass, I think, probably.
It's actually, so they're using a thin piece of glass with plastic on top.
Interesting. So it's a thin film glass. Good. Yeah, I knew Corning was working on that, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's happening. Well, okay, so it's going to make at least it be way more durable than the terrible Fold durability.
I have the Galaxy Fold. I bought one day one. Perfectly fine still.
Oh, good. But I mean, it's you have to treat it with kid's glove, I feel. People don't do that.
I've treated mine. I've been pretty harsh on it, and it's been fine. I was surprised.
Okay. Well, I've just seen, I've seen both sides. I've seen people having no issues like you, and then I've seen like a few people that have lost pixels here and there from accidentally poking it with their fingernail sort of thing,
Yeah, I've seen the same thing. It's you once you get in the habit of treating it a little bit different than a normal phone, it just becomes second nature. But it's hard for people like us when we're switching between phones every day to get used to one specific type.
Totally. So what about the camera specs on that quote-unquote rear camera? Is that 1? Is that 2? That's 3? What is it?
2 cameras. 12 ultra
and
wide.
It's ultra wide. Okay, so it's like the S20 basically.
Basically, and it's going to likely have the same sensors from the S20.
Right, yeah, that makes perfect. And that's good enough, honestly. And then battery, do we know?
3,300 milliamp hours.
Yeah, probably divided into two batteries split across the two sides.
It's not going to be even this time, though. It's one of them's going to be 900. And the other one's going to be like 2,400.
Well, Max, you do have to put the quote-unquote motherboard somewhere.
That's true.
Right? So it's probably the 900 is on the side where the motherboard is, and that's probably the main side, and the display side has the other disc thing.
Yeah.
Or it could be the other way around, simply because there's already a display on the outside and a camera on the outside of the lid. So that probably takes up a lot of real estate, and so that's probably where the smaller battery is, along with the motherboard. And then the bottom part is just basically the big battery, the secondary.
Yeah.
I don't know, but that's again an engineering issue I'm not too concerned with. Snapdragon 865, 865, 760. That's interesting. I would have expected that to be a 765, with 5G, right?
They're going LTE for this one, and I kind of don't blame them.
No, of course. But still, I mean, it probably has been in development for a while. It's kind of like the Razer, I expect Samsung has learned from the Fold and probably was going to launch this in the fall. And then they're like, let's make sure we got our ducks lined up in a row here.
The original rumor I heard about this one was supposed to launch with the Note 10.
Wow.
But after the whole Fold fiasco when it first came out.
So that explains the specs.
Pushed it back. Yeah. Cool. And also, I think it's because of the battery, because 5G is not power efficient right now.
You're right. It's the battery life we have to worry about. Yep.
You can't run that off. You can't run 5G off 3,300.
It does depend on what you're running, right? If you're running low band, you're probably okay. Like my OnePlus.
Oh, they're running both. It's dual band, millimeter wave and sub 6 low, like
On the
mid-band.
S20s? It's
Yeah,
gonna be
it's
both?
gonna be everything.
It's gonna be
There you
everything.
go on the full
On
power
all
of the X55.
on all of them, huh? Interesting.
Yeah.
So what about micro SD on the Z Flip? And as a related thing, what about micro SD on the S20s?
So I don't know for sure what the Z Flip will have in terms of eSIM, normal SIM, and micro SD. But the S20s will. I know for sure the S20 Plus and S20 Ultra have micro SD. I'm not sure about that smaller one.
Yeah, I don't know if the Flip even needs it, frankly. I'm just more like, it just reminded me, like we talked about the headphone jack going on the S20s, and I realized, oh, micro SD, because, 1 year they did with the S6, right?
Yeah, and there was huge backlash.
Of course, but back then I can understand. Nowadays, I'm not sure even people would even notice. I don't know too many people that put a micro SD in their phone, but...
No. The only thing I have with a micro SD is a Nintendo Switch.
I mean, it's nice to have. Don't get me wrong, but it's not essential. I'd rather have wireless charging before micro SD. Anytime.
Same. I 100% agree.
So we're looking at we're not sure about little details like that. Is there a fingerprint sensor in display then, or how does that work?
I've been told that it isn't in display, and I assume it's.
I hope it's on the fingerprint. I hope it's on the power button on the side. That's what I want.
I think it will be.
Because on the chin it's awkward on the Razr, on the chin it's a little weird.
Also, if they're with the notes, you have to put a decent amount of pressure on the fingerprint scanner, and that might not be good on a foldable display.
No, and plus, I mean, it's already hard enough to make a folding display. The last thing you need is to have to embed in display fingerprint sensor that takes up additional Z space, thickness.
Yeah.
So, I don't I mean, honestly, if they do what they did with the Fold, and this S10e having it on the side like that, I think that's actually going to work out just fine. And I don't really think I'm going to be too upset if that's all they do, right?
Yeah.
What else do we know? RAM, storage, anything like
that? Storage will be likely 256.
Uh-huh.
And RAM will probably be 8 gigs.
8, yeah. Well, that sounds... Honestly, the specs are more appealing than the Razr, which is a bummer for Moto, because they still haven't launched. Remember how they were supposed to ship this thing January 6th or whatever?
That was
That's
supposed to ship last week.
Yeah.
And but you haven't heard the price yet.
Oh yeah. Do you have pricing info for the S20 as well?
I have pretty good guesses for the S20.
So give us your guesses first for the Z Flips when it's still on topic here.
So I've seen a couple reports from a couple different places. I haven't heard anything myself, but the reports say 850.
So they're gonna undercut. Oh my god!
It's gonna be about half the price.
Poor Moto.
The Razr's dead if that's true. There's no way anyone.
Well, it's not dead because you have to understand. There's a couple of things, Max. You have to understand. I agree with you. Like I don't think you're wrong. I just think it's not dead because two things: Verizon, number one, and number two, we have the diehard. I want a Razr because I had a Razr people.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? That's a nostalgia factor that you're gonna say. Well, you get the same experience with the Flip. Z Flip, and I'm like, absolutely. And honestly, I'd put my eggs in the Samsung basket at this point at that price with those specs. Even though Samsung has had a few issues with their Fold, but I feel like I'm not that attached to the Razr look and feel, right? I actually honestly looking forward to the more modern look and feel of a Galaxy design here. But some people are just going to be so stuck on that,
Yeah, but I don't know if they'll be so stuck on it after they see that price tag, and that's
Remember, Max, nobody buys a phone in the US at full price.
That's true.
I think it's stupid. I don't like it. I'm a big proponent of unlocked phones. You buy the terminal, you pick the network. It's the way it should be. But the American market isn't like that. It has never been. For a little while, it looked like it might be, but then now it's subsidies. And if Verizon can subsidize the Razr to be like whatever it is, $16.99 or whatever, it's probably less, way more than that. But say $50 a month or $30, $40 a month, and then they don't have the same deal on the Z Flip. People are going to buy the Razr.
Yeah, that's fair.
They don't care. They're never going to pay full price for that thing ever. Like especially Verizon customers. Are you kidding me? Verizon customers don't even know what an unlocked terminal is.
That's true.
Like, they don't even know that they can buy a phone separate from their carrier. They're the worst because Verizon customers have been so locked into CDMA for so long that they don't understand the concept of swapping SIMs even.
It's a shame.
I hate to tell you that because I know it drives you nuts and it drives me nuts and it drives all our listeners nuts because they're all smart people who understand unlocked is the way to go. But I have to be honest with you right now. If I'm a T-Mobile customer, right, and I have 5G in one of the cities I live in, and I would totally like right now spend buy a subsidized OnePlus 70 Pro 5G McLaren, which I have a review unit of right now. But if I was just a customer, I would buy it because I can't buy it unlocked, number one. I want the 5G, number two. Number three, it's a great phone. And number four, it's on a great carrier. Like, I would do it. I wouldn't care. Why would I pay $900 up front when I can get it tucked onto my plan for like whatever it is, $30 a month? And then I would probably trade it in for something else like 6 months from now when 5G choices are much more, abundant, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't blame people. I wish there were a good reason for me to tell them that they should always buy unlocked, but it's getting harder for me to justify telling people that when I see stuff like that. And when I see some of the prices and the deals, like I keep seeing these ads for like, buy a Galaxy Note and get one for free. And I'm like, 2 Galaxy Notes, not a bad deal, right? But you have to do that subsidized, and then you deal with all the bloatware and all the blah, blah, blah. And it's a pain in the ass, but hey, talk people out of it. Good luck,
Yeah, that's true. But
so I don't think that's
don't
game over for the Razr just yet. I think that in the absolute, though, if you're smart, you're probably going to want to buy the Z Flip when you see these specs and the price, right?
Yeah, but also the Z Flip is going to launch on a bunch of US carriers, and I believe it'll launch on Verizon as well.
Yeah, exactly. So you'll have the choice on Verizon.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's switch to the next topic. Thanks for all that insider intel. Really appreciate it. Again, it's really cool that you have access to this intelligence. It's very nice. And thanks for sharing with the rest of the world. And I'll link to most of your stories. I couldn't actually find stories on XDA developers specifically on leaks on the Z Flip. So if you have some links, let me know. But I definitely will include all the links to your S10 stuff that you revealed this week in the show notes. So that'll be cool. Speaking of 120 hertz displays, OnePlus confirmed to The Verge. Pete Lau was on their podcast. Nice thing to have Pete Lau. I actually was thinking I should ping Carl Pei and see if he wants to be on my show sometime. Because I do this where I have execs from companies for the first 20 minutes of my show, and then I have my media guests joining that, and then we kind of discuss for the rest of the show. We discuss what the person from the company said. So I'm going to see if I can get Pete, not Pete, because Pete is a little harder to get, but I think Carl to see to get on the show and talk a little bit about this. But apparently Pete told The Verge that confirmed basically that the next OnePlus, the 8 series, is going to be 120 hertz. So I think we're going into a year of 120 hertz, Max.
I think you're right. And
are you happy?
A little, but I don't like OnePlus's way of doing it.
Like fixed rate?
I don't like how they're trying to interpolate video to make everything 120 hertz.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
You can always turn it off though, right? That's the thing.
Yeah, I just don't. It's one of those things where I know a lot of TV manufacturers wanted to add that to their TVs, and Hollywood came together to stop them from doing it. Yeah. And I think that was for the better because it's that soap opera effect.
Motion blur madness, yeah.
Yeah. And OnePlus is now just feeding that, and it's going to ruin a lot of things for a lot of filmmakers.
Well, let's see if we can maybe, since they listen to their audience a lot, we can maybe hope that they have a mode where you can turn it in the settings that when video plays, it goes down to the right frame rate.
Hopefully.
That would be great. But I don't think I really personally, I wouldn't buy OnePlus to watch video. Like, no, I know it's a lot of what people do. I get it, right? Like, but I'm just saying, you don't buy OnePlus because you're going to spend your whole day watching Netflix on the bus. Like, I don't know. It's not. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't understand the wave of the youth.
You're 100% right.
The youths today. But I'm just excited that we're going to see more 120 hertz phones next year. And it's good to see that Pete confirmed it on the Verge's podcast. I've got some LG G9 rumors. Should we even be excited about that? I'm not sure.
I mean, who's been excited about an LG phone?
Well, I am an audiophile, and I appreciate their quad DAC. I think it's nice that not just that they have a headphone jack. I could honestly care less that they just have a headphone jack at this point, because you can get external DACs that are much better quality anyway through USB Type-C. But I'm more excited that the thing that's built in is really high quality, and so I'm still a bit of a believer. The G8 was weird because there were the G8 and the G8X, and then this whole dual screen stuff they've been trying to do. And I felt like the G8 was deficient in some ways, and the G8X was deficient in completely other ways, and that they complemented their deficiencies in a really kind of like additive kind of way. And it was really, really weird to me that no matter how you cut it, you didn't get anything really exciting on either.
No.
They could have just made one that was better and not two that were kind of half-baked, which is what I feel like they did,
Yeah. I have the V50. I got that as a review unit from LG. And I am entirely unimpressed by the hardware. And I'm going to be honest, it has sat on a shelf since November.
Yeah, I got the LG G8X with the dual screen. I gave it a spin. And this dual screen thing, I mean, I have to say that it was very aggressively priced, and the phone itself was kind of okay, but it was also very kind of meh. Like, I hate that they downgraded the cameras from the original G8 by making the pixels smaller and the f-stops worse. So, like, basically they crippled the cameras and... but the display is also 1080p instead. So they kind of cheapened out on some parts, but then the rest of the phone is actually better because it doesn't have that stupid, weird front notch with all the time of flight gesture crap.
Yeah.
So on one way it's better, but on the other way it's just like, you kind of missed the boat. And I never got the V50, although I played with it at MWC last year. But I mean, I had the V40, so I kind of know what to expect. The V50 was really just an upgrade to the V40. Yeah. I just want LG. I know LG can do better. I just want them to kind of like, they have the money. They're like a big Korean company. They're the number 2 in Korea. They have resources. They make some of the best OLEDs. They have good camera. They have good imaging. Their camera stack is solid. Like the G8 Non-X, the original, which had f/1.5 f-stop on the main lens.
Wow.
And an f/1.9 ultra wide.
That's crazy.
Yeah, like, I'm sorry, a lot of people didn't talk about this, but I reviewed the G8 for Geekspin, and the camera on that thing is killer. A lot of people said, it's just generic, feels like a Samsung phone in terms of imaging. You did not try hard enough, folks. In low light, that thing kills. Because not only does LG have good imaging and color science, they have good imaging algorithms, they have a really fast lens and large sensors, in terms of pixel sizes. So the G8X, however, didn't have any of that. They downgraded to save cost. But I know LG can do it, but there's no excitement. There's no, they just continue to, I think LG's big mistake is they never made the transition that Samsung kind of did kicking and screaming, and that Apple kind of forced upon everyone to understand that their customer is not the carriers. Their customer is you and me.
Yeah.
LG never made that transition. Samsung reluctantly, slowly made that transition. They understand now that they're marketing directly to customers and that the carriers are just an intermediate and that the carriers should bow to their will. And they have the might to do that.
Yeah.
But LG was never able to develop that might because LG never tried and never understood that the customer is not the carrier. The customer is me and you. And Apple taught everyone that. The US market needed to understand that. And LG's just dragging along going, yeah, we're going to make another phone for you, AT&T. It's going to be called the LG G8X, and it's going to have the dual screen. And it's going to be downgraded in specs because we have to save money. And in the meantime, it's more matte, more beige, more blah.
Basically. It's...
Yeah.
It's hard to get excited about an LG phone.
It's hard.
And
so we don't know too much. No. But...
it's probably 5G, probably the 865, probably better
or 765. Cameras. Who knows?
Yeah, that's.
The 765 is the chip I'm really excited about this year. Yeah. A lot of Chinese phones have 700 series chips. The 730 was very popular. I have an Oppo What is the Reno 2 with 730G, and it's a great phone. The 710, I played that on another Oppo phone, the R17 Pro, earlier last year, about a year ago. And again, it was basically almost the same performance as the 8 series counterpart for less money. And the gaming is really, on the 730G, the gaming is really almost equivalent to the 855. So, not a bad deal for a little bit of saving of money. And the 765G is significant on 765 non-G as well, because they have integrated 5G. You do not require a separate modem with more power consumption and all that stuff, right? So it's a big deal to me. And I think that is a chip I want to see in more devices in the US next year, because we don't all need 800 series chips, okay? We do not. Like, trust me on this. You don't need it.
It's nice to have it, but you don't need it.
You don't need it for the average person. Gamers, yes. Super premium flagships like the Note 20 and the S20 Ultra, yes. But like, even, I would argue that even like something like the S20 non-plus should be perfectly fine as 765, honestly. Like, there's no reason that needs anything.
I would say if they did that and they didn't lower the price to 600, that essentially Tech Media would rip them apart for not.
But that's my point. They should lower the price to 600. But if you look around, iPhone 11 is eating everybody's lunch at $700. Okay,
but they would rather release a good A series at 600 or 700.
But nobody buys A series in the US. Nobody knows A series in the US. People want flagship, and so that's why I kind of think that they could match or beat or get close to the iPhone 11. In terms of price, like $650, undercut it by $50.
They need an S20 Ultra like that, or sorry, an S20 Lite, S20 Lite at 600.
Make it 765G with built-in 5G, and
honestly, I could see them doing that if they,
and no millimeter wave, like just mid and low band. Just that's all you need. Like
but Verizon's the only one really doing millimeter wave.
Yeah, at this point, well, technically, T-Mobile has it and AT&T have it as well, but they're not really that widespread. Honestly, I think the meat of the market, the thing that's going to really change the game in the US this year is sub 6 low band. I've been experiencing it on my OnePlus on T-Mobile, and honestly, I'm now getting signal that's usable signal in places where I could barely get LTE, and it's not megabits, okay? Sorry, it's not gigabit. I get it. I don't care though, because now I can get a solid 100 megabits per second on one bar in the back of a basement where I could get no 4G before, okay? That's a game changer for people. That's what matters. It's not the 2 gigabits per second line of sight you get. Ooh, look, I'm on a block with millimeter wave. My battery is like smoking hot and my phone is dying. But hey, I could say I downloaded a film in 2 seconds. Like, nobody cares. Yeah, people want practical. And that's why the 765, I think, is a game changer there, because it's cheaper, much more power efficient because it's integrated, and it gives you almost the same performance as the 8 series. We'll see what happens, but I think in the American market is weird because, people, again, buy subsidized. They don't care about the final price of the phone.
They care about
for them,
price.
it's just like the difference between an S10 Plus and a Note 10 Plus or whatever, or like say an S10 and currently like an S10e and an S10 Plus.
It's like $3 a month.
$3 a month. It's like you can barely buy an espresso for this in San Francisco. Okay, like you're not gonna care. So I think that's why we're seeing them put 8 series chips and everything. But at the same time, I question, do we really need that? Because does the average mom and pop that walk into a Verizon store care that it has a 765 or an 865? Nope. Will they notice the difference?
Those are also the people to buy iPhones.
Nope. Well, that's true. But there's a lot of people who don't buy iPhones because they're not in that ecosystem and they're in the Galaxy ecosystem, right? So, and I see people out there, I hate to say this makes me cringe. I'm going to hurt myself for saying it, but I see people using Bixby out there. In their cars, because they don't know anything better. They have never really learned about, like, they probably have Alexa at home and then they have Bixby on their phone, and it's terrible.
I feel sorry for them. They're such a poor. There's such a lack
of education. I was at my local deli yesterday, and I ordered a sandwich, and I talked to my deli person who I've known for almost 20 years because I've lived in the same neighborhood in SF for 20 years. And she's like, "You have a Tesla?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she goes, "Are those electric?" And I'm like,
Oh.
really? Like, I love you. You make me good sandwiches. You're a smart woman. You work really hard. But how do you not know? How do you, like, I can understand that you might be confused that you think it's a hybrid, maybe, but like, how, you live in San Francisco. How do you not know? How, my, you hurt me in my special place. And it's like the same thing with phones, Max. Like, the amount of misinformation out there is just rampant and gross,
Yeah. I've brought my Galaxy Fold out in public a lot. That's my daily driver at the moment. And I have people saying to me, "Oh, how did you get that phone? I thought that was canceled. No one should be able to have that." And someone once I was at a restaurant, and the owner was concerned that it was going to catch on fire because he didn't know why it was canceled.
Oh, because they
delayed.
probably thought it was a Note 7.
Yeah.
Anyway, so all we know about this LG G9 is it has a headphone jack and the quad DAC and not too much else. I just thought I'd just like squeeze it in there because, there were also rumors I didn't put in the show notes of a Sony Xperia 5 Ultra or something. Some high-end version of the 5, which I guess would replace the Xperia 1 then, because I like the 5 better than the 1, honestly.
I have the 1, and the fingerprint scanner is horrible, so I don't.
The 5 is really, honestly, get a 5. It's actually a really joyful little phone. It's everything you love about a 1 without everything you hate about the 1. It's not as big. The battery life is better because it doesn't have to drive that stupid, crazy resolution. And the cameras have been improved, even though physically they're exactly physically hardware identical cameras. They are better because the software is better on them.
I do have to say the software's pretty bad on
It's pretty surprising. I was kind of going to dismiss that phone, and then I was like, what a breath of fresh air. So, yes, I will put a link to this. There is rumors of an Xperia 5 Ultra that is a bigger Xperia 5, which I presumably will deprecate and succeed the Xperia 1.
And the one design thing about that phone, it has squared off edges.
Of course it does.
It's flat edges, and I love that.
I love flat edges. I like square phones too. They're pretty cool.
It reminds me of the iPad Pro, a small, tall iPad Pro. And that's great.
Although I kind of feel like Razer went a little too far with the squareness.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
It's like almost a weapon. You can hurt people with that phone.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what else we got on the topics. Oh, iPhone 9 leaks. This is important. The iPhone 9 is going to be a very important phone. If it comes out for $399 and it has the same, let's say for a second, it has the same processor and rear camera, single rear camera, as the main camera on the 11, and it has the same processor as the 11, and it's the size of an iPhone 8, which is what all the rumors have been pointing at, and still has the old interface. You wouldn't believe how many people I know that are iPhone users, including my spouse who has an iPhone SE and it can't wait to upgrade, is waiting for a phone with a fingerprint reader from what is it called? They have a name on Apple. What is it? Touch ID. Yeah, with phones Touch ID, because they don't like the gestures and they don't want to get used to them yet. And not only that, but $399, if you can give me iPhone 11 performance with less battery and even if I lose the ultra wide at that price, that phone is killer. Think about it. 60 frames per second rear video on the rear at 4K. Yeah. You don't get that for $399 on an Android phone, right? You don't get that at all for $399 on an Android phone. So
there's one Android phone I know of that does it, and that's the K20 Pro.
Yeah, well, the K20 Pro is not in the same league in terms of video. I love that phone. I think it's one of the best phones 2019. It's actually in my top 5. But I just don't feel like it's competitive with the iPhone in terms of video. And
the only one that's competitive is Samsung, and their phones with that level are $1,000.
Correct. So, are you excited about the iPhone 9?
Kind of. I feel like it's an outdated design, but it's going to sell very well. And as a tech person, I'm not a fan because it's outdated.
No.
But it's going to sell well.
All these poor iPhone SE users out there, like my spouse, they're dying for a small phone with a fingerprint reader. If they can get these specs that we have in the 11 today, I think that's a good move for Apple and for their ecosystem.
Yeah.
That's all.
It is. It is.
I hear you. It's not our phone, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I bought an 11. I finally caved in and bought an 11 in December. And I finally used it CS as my main phone for video. and it's changing the game for me. Like this is the killer combo that I have in my pocket because I have to return the McLaren phone, so it's no longer my daily driver. The killer combo in my pocket is the Pixel 4 XL and the iPhone 11 non-Pro. And the reason for that is if I need ultra wide, I've got it on the iPhone. It's really good. If I need video, I've got it on the iPhone. It's really, really good. And if I want to use the zoom and have a main camera, I have the Pixel 4. In fact, the main camera is a toss. I can use both of them. They're pretty good.
For zoom, you have to go Pixel.
Oh, for the zoom, you have to go Pixel. But basically, as an Android user, that gives me everything I want. Like, it is the best combo right now. If you're a power user, I highly recommend this two punch combo. Like, if you can afford it, do it. It's killer. I also traded in my iPhone 10 that I bought 2 years ago and got $400 for that back. So I really paid $300 for that iPhone 11.
That's a really good price.
It is a steal. Even though I did lose whatever it was, I still paid $1,000 for an iPhone 10 2 years ago. So I still spent $600 on that iPhone 10 originally. Right? I never got that back. But hey, I like this trade-in program that Apple has. It's very smooth. It works well. I was surprised. I was a little hesitant, because I don't know, are they going to give me my $400 back? And they did. Well, it was a mint condition, so I don't.
Apple's pretty good at that.
Yeah.
You know who's even better at trade-in values?
Who?
Samsung. They offer $600.
Really?
So when the S20 comes out, you can trade an S10e for $600.
That's interesting. I did not realize they even did that.
They double their trade-in prices, pretty much double it whenever a new phone comes out, just to try to get as many people to get it as possible.
Interesting. A couple of last minute items I want to just add to this whole madness because they're really CS announcements that I just didn't get to pack in last week, and I think they are kind of significant. The first one is that MediaTek launched a second cheaper 5G SoC, so another chip with built-in 5G called the MediaTek Dimensity 800. As you know, they launched the MediaTek Dimensity 1000, their flagship chip that basically can compete with 800 series chips from Qualcomm. They launched that in November or early December, can't remember. And the 800 is basically there's kind of their 765 equivalent.
Yeah.
And or maybe the 1000 is 765, and then this is more like a 665 with with 5G built in. But it's exciting because in the US this doesn't matter too much. But in markets where mostly it's low band and mid band 5G, where price is really critical, MediaTek has always been a very strong competitor to Qualcomm in those markets because they make chips that are more affordable and very close. Very good in terms of performance for their money, and now very close to Qualcomm's offering. So this is very exciting that they have a new, more foldable. And basically, they're really serious about this integrated 5G SoC thing. Is my takeaway.
I completely agree. It's MediaTek. I've pretty much ignored.
They're kind of killing it right now, honestly.
Yeah,
I feel like
I've ignored them till this year, and this year I can't. They've been killing it with their processors and like everything. Yeah. And their phones too. Like those phone processor now, I could see companies like OnePlus with the OnePlus 8 Lite, they could probably throw in the 1000 into there. Even Samsung and some A series might throw in some of those. And I wouldn't knock them for it like I would have a couple years ago.
And just to have a point of reference, folks, this is what predates all these new chips. But I've been playing with the Reno 2 from Oppo, which has a Snapdragon 730G, and I've simultaneously side by side been playing with the Oppo Reno 2Z, which is pretty much exactly the same phone with the Helio P90, which until now was the highest chip that MediaTek made. And frankly, you wouldn't be able to tell them apart. In fact, I would say that for imaging, the MediaTek image processing seemed surprisingly a touch better to me than. Now, you have to understand this is also including Oppo's camera app, right? So I'm comparing Oppo hardware, similar sensors, similar lenses, similar camera apps And who knows exactly how Oppo is doing their image processing. But Oppo is very good. Their cameras have been really solid for a while now.
Yeah, they have.
So I feel like I've putting them side by side. I found that the MediaTek, in some cases, stumbled, but in most cases, I would say, seemed to come out a bit ahead of what they were doing on the Snapdragon version of the phone. So I think that if that gets applied to the Dimensity chips, these two chips from MediaTek, we're going to see some very competitive offerings from Oppo, Vivo, OnePlus, the BBK group in general, and probably from other players. Like
Xiaomi for sure.
Xiaomi for sure. I was just going to say that. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see some or more of these chips in the US with the low and mid-band 5G proliferating, especially in the prepaid or mid-range. There's very little mid-range in the US because everybody buys subsidized, and they don't care about buying high-end phones because it's a monthly payment.
Is basically it.
But what I'm thinking might happen is, there's Moto G series. I could see a Moto G with a Dimensity 800 chip in it. But I feel like Moto has such a strong relationship with Qualcomm that we probably are going to see a 765G first. But that's too expensive. That makes it a Moto Z, not a Moto G anymore.
Yeah, and I think definitely throw it into the G.
But I would love to see, what I really think we need from Qualcomm, and I hope they're going to announce in the next few months, is a 665 5G. A 6 series 5G integrated SoC that competes directly with the Dimensity 800, and that can kind of bring us a Moto G 5G that only works on low band and mid band, right? There's no millimeter here. The feeling I get is that Qualcomm is so invested in millimeter that it's going to be hard for them to make a chip that doesn't support millimeter, right? Especially when Verizon is going to breeze down their throat doing, what do you mean you're making a Moto G 5G that doesn't support millimeter? Grrr. And Verizon, we love you, but you know what? Millimeter is great. As I said, gigabits per second speeds is lovely for a minute, but what we want is coverage and usable speeds in tricky areas that 4G right now is missing out on. And that's what the low band and the mid band are bringing us. So the reality is that if you're looking at the low end of the market, it's all about low band 5G. And finally, because we're running out of time, I want to quickly mention that I was at CS as well, obviously looking at Honor and Huawei. They had a booth there. Of course, nothing new in the booth really per se, but Honor had a briefing with us and showed us a new laptop called the MagicBook, which is basically very similar to Huawei's laptops, and a Magic Watch 2, which is very similar to the Watch GT2 that Huawei launched earlier. So the Magic Watch 2, it was actually pretty hot and sexy. It came in two sizes. And so what Honor and Huawei have done with the Watch GT and the Magic Watch is that they've taken the guts from their high-end step trackers. They're basically their fitness devices, their bands, and which is really good on battery life and has lots of features, including continuous heart rate sensing and continuous sleep sensing, all kinds of I use a Huawei band for sleep tracking, and it's really awesome. And they've taken all this technology, put it in a smartwatch. So it's not really a smartwatch in the sense that it doesn't have apps like Wear OS or like an Apple Watch would, but it has notifications and it has basically watch faces and all these really great fitness and health tracking features on a watch that lasts you 2 weeks on a charge.
That the battery life is insane.
Right. So that's the killer.
Going off pure smartwatch usability, I've come to the realization there are really only two good ones to buy off of what I've used. The Apple Watch and the Samsung watches.
Yeah, I agree. I'm wearing a Samsung watch during the day because I like to have a bit better experience and more in-depth experience on my wrist. But I wear that that Huawei band at night just for my sleep tracking because it's lighter and thinner and smaller than this bulky Samsung watch.
It looks like an insane fitness band, and that competes very well with Fitbit.
Yeah, and so the Magic Watch gives you that in a watch form factor, and I think so. That's very exciting. The MagicBook looks super sexy. Had this really cool beveled edges that were anodized blue aluminum on a silver
wow.
device. It was very hot. I'll try to post some photos to my Instagram. I have such a glut of photos left from CS that I haven't posted, so expect a big dump at some point in the next few days of a bunch of CS leftover photos, including those of the Honor products. So kudos to Honor and Huawei for actually still being at CS after all the insanity. We like to see that. So that's it, folks. I think we've wrapped it up in terms of topics. Max, do you want to tell people where on the internet they can find you, like Twitter handle, like obviously pitch XDA forums and all that?
Yeah. So I work for XDA developers. I'm one of their writers focusing mainly on Samsung. So if you guys go to XDA developers, we've got a huge forums of like anything you could possibly want to do with software ever. We've got essentially everything on there. And then you'll probably see me, if you're going anytime soon, covering anything Samsung. And then I also make videos for the XDA TV YouTube channel, so you'll see me on there sometimes. And my Twitter is Max Weinbach, but the handle is spelled MaxWinebach because Twitter doesn't deactivate unused accounts.
Yeah, Twitter. Do you have an Instagram?
I do. It is M Weinbach, so MWEINBACH.
Well, there you go, folks. Please follow Max on the various socials. Definitely, you should get your dose of XDA developers news every day and videos because they're kick-ass folks over there. Obviously, they're giving us all this crazy insider info on the Galaxy S20 right now. Max is through his contacts and sources. So this is exciting. And more importantly, it's a great source. There's a forum, which I mentioned, which is a really great source of all kinds of discussions. If you're looking for custom ROMs and stuff, I mean, XDA, I don't think I have to introduce XDA to my audience. They know who you guys are. How could they not? You know where to find me on the internet, folks. I'm at Tankgirl. That's TNKGRL, like the comic book character without the vowels. So Tankgirl is my handle on Twitter. If you want to talk to me about the podcast, do it on Twitter. Instagram is where you'll find some pretty photos of phones, also pretty photos taken with phones. Same handle. And there is a YouTube channel to go with a podcast. If you search in YouTube for Mobile Tech Podcast, you'll find the YouTube channel. Also exciting, I started a second channel yesterday, whenever it was. There's a lot of devices that get sent to me that are not core, like, things that I'm really into. But my producer really likes these things like lifestyle products and health and well-being products. And we're going to review them or mention them or show them on this second channel called Mobile Tech More. So it's a new channel. We're starting it. And so check that out, Mobile Tech More. So you can search for that on YouTube as well. Mobile Tech Podcast is the main YouTube channel, though. And then if you stumbled on this show by accident and you're like, hey, I like this show, I want to subscribe, then you should do that. We're on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Pocket Cast, Spotify. Search for Mobile Tech Podcast or my handle, Tankgirl. Also, you can go to mobiletechpodcast.com. There's an RSS feed there. If you're old school and you want to put that in your preferred podcatching app, you can do that. And then finally, I want to thank our sponsor, Audible.com. Audible has been with us almost since the beginning. And if you like books, you ought to check out Audible because Audible is the place to go to listen to books. If for some reason you're a delivery driver, you drive all day, and you're going on a long road trip crossing the US and you need something to listen to, they've got you covered. They have a lot of choices, a lot of books. A lot of them are read by the authors. It's really kick-ass. I think you should check it out. And the reason you should is because if you do click on the link in the show notes below, which I'll give you in a second verbally, you can support the podcast. So even if you decide to not stay with Audible long term, you will support the podcast if you try it out for free for 30 days. 30-day free trial. You get to keep a book at the end, and Audible's got you covered. The URL is audibletrial.com/mobiletech. That's audibletrial.com/mobiletech. It's also in the show notes. Please consider, if you're not already using Audible, supporting the podcast by clicking through and doing your 30-day free trial. Stay if you like it, leave if you don't, but we appreciate you supporting the show, and we appreciate Audible supporting the show by giving us this sponsored opportunity. So thanks to Audible, and again, thanks to you, Max, for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Really enjoyed being on it.
Yeah, we'll have you on again for sure. Maybe there'll be more crazy leaks and rumors. You never know. It's the entire universe that we live in, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, folks, stay tuned. We'll have another show next week. And until then, cheers, everybody.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.